could run an advertisement simply to do that. An ad, of course, can generate leads, event leads. To be specific here, help sell a product, promote a brand, download an app, even to visit a location. Think Google Maps. And to complete a survey or sign up for a newsletter or a mailing list, much more. Watch a video, you name it. You can do a lot with digital advertisements, no matter where they appear. So the goal can be multi-pronged. Some of the, whoops, something came up here in front of my slide. A poll, enjoy the poll. So some of the well-known platforms that you may or may not be familiar with, Google Ads and what you can do with a digital advertisement using Google Ads service. Of course, advertisements and search results, which will be the focus of this particular webinar today. Advertising on YouTube, which is a sub-company of Alphabet Incorporated. On their display network, ads that would be shown on a news website in a square form. And in Gmail, at the top of Gmail, if you use the app or the web browser version of Gmail. Other platforms, of course, are Facebook and Instagram. You can actually build an advertisement in Facebook and it subsequently show on Instagram. You can build one ad and it will resize automatically for that other platform. Of course, Bing, LinkedIn, Twitter. There are ad networks. Last I saw, there are at least 8 to 10 popular ad networks that you can advertise through. Platforms that permit advertising within apps, specifically platforms of that kind. And of course, there are more platforms. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So we envision ourselves wanting to launch a campaign to achieve a goal, and we can assume any goal. We'll assume to get an RFP for your venue for events. And it's a journey to build an advertisement. There's research, there's not necessarily testing, but trying some things. Design won't be a factor in our text ad that we experience today, but you may have design considerations or a choice of photo if it's Facebook or a video. So step one here, got to do some research. And fortunately, there are some free tools before you even go out and select a platform, whether it be Bing or Twitter or LinkedIn, where you might have some text-based search ads. You can go out and use Google's tools for free. And 2 good tools are Search Trends, which is trends.google.com, and then Keyword Planning, which is a much more detailed view. And we'll see a little screen capture that I did on each of these when I advance to the next slides. And your research should include looking at competitor advertisements. You should be able to find them if they're advertising, especially in a Google search. Screenshot them, plop them into a folder, refer to them, see what they're doing. You can at least see that, so there's some competitive intelligence. So Search Trends is a very powerful tool. You can begin to look up keyword phrases that could be relevant to your venue, and we'll get to that slide in a second. And judge the search volume that surrounds those terms. So in this next slide, I'm going to play the screen capture. So you go to trends.google.com and you can type a key phrase. Here I picked Chicago event venues. And what this will do is demonstrate the search interest over time for an entire year, or you can change the time frame. So search interest of 100 is the maximum amount of interest at that point in the year for that key term. And then we can see where people are searching from on that particular phrase. Now, we don't see the long tail. We don't see all activity for the term Chicago event venues. So what the Trends tool is going to show us is significant volume, which is where you're going to want to, set up your keyword phrases when you go to build a text ad. You want to go after the volume. But you do want to go after the long tail too. The long tail being search terms that fall down with maybe 5 to 10 searches a month, or even one. There is going to be some uniqueness about your venue that you do want to try and capture searchers on. Unique experience at your venue certainly could be something that people would be looking for that isn't going to show up in search volume, but will present your ad to searchers out there on Google at least. So we need to go to the next slide. Okay, so Google's keyword planning tool is interesting. Not only does it show the trends alongside the keyword phrases you're investigating, search terms that you're investigating, it also is going to show estimated cost per click. And I'll execute this little screen capture. So we stick with Chicago event venues. And we can get our results, and we'll see the trends. And we'll also see the estimated cost per click for that key phrase. And it also gives you keyword ideas. So it does some bulk work for you related to the term you expressly searched on. And then you can start to compare it against other terms. Well, the difference between New York and Chicago event venues might be about 52 cents a click. Okay, interesting. So some competitive intelligence can be gained there. So when thinking about keyword planning, you should have a lot of keyword phrases that you do research on. Build a big list, build it in a spreadsheet, maintain it. And what's nice about that keyword list is that it can help you work on your own website in terms of keywords you're going after for searchers out on Google organically. So, if you work with an SEO consultant or do SEO, search engine optimization in-house, by all means, keep that key phrase list built and growing. And you can always load these terms in bulk in the keyword planner and process them all at once and see results. So some time-saving mechanisms as well. And go back to slideshow view. And I hit escape by mistake. Sorry about that. Okay, so after keyword planning, so you have your set of keywords and you're going to begin to build your advertisement. And we're thinking about one advertisement at this moment with some remarks at the end that will suggest an even further development of how you might advertise. But we won't cover that part, but I'll have remarks about it. Nonetheless, so there are different match types that come into play. These are the 3 main ones. So when building an advertisement, you'll load your key phrases and you'll start to see some estimates, how much things might cost, what kind of impressions are they going to create for you out on Google search results. So you want that ad to show up for specific phrases. You want it to show up on a phrase match. The second one is most important. I find this one to be most effective in terms of both cost and getting relevant clicks that lead to results. Google throws broad match as an option. So event venues in Chicago, if someone searches on that and you're set up to broadly match that, it could be a large variation of that phrase. Conference centers in Chicago would qualify because it has not very similar meaning, but it's in the ballpark. So I highly recommend choosing phrase match. Exact match, another poll just popped up, pardon me. Exact match will still, it's not going to match only on event venues in Chicago when someone searches, but it'll bring up closer variations. So party venues in Chicago is a much closer variation. So, your ad should appear for that result if you use exact match. So I go phrase match first, exact match second, and when in doubt, broad match. All right, so I'm not sure of the time frame here because I'm in full screen mode. I'll have to advance forward again, but I think I'll pause here as we're about 15 after the hour and find out if Joel has any questions based on.
Right now, Todd, there are no questions. So just a reminder, participants, if you have a specific question for Todd, hit the Q&A button and type it in there, and we'll make sure it gets answered for you. But Todd, go ahead and keep on rolling.
Okay, and apologies for having to bounce forward to the slide. I was in presenter view at the outset, but for some reason was not showing up full screen. So I have to, especially in the recorded portion, apologies to anyone watching. So we'll move on to what I assume everybody has seen, whether it's in Google, Bing, Yahoo, a text ad. And this is the basic framework of a text ad, and it has terminology associated to it. So I thought it would be valuable to understand a bit of what these terms are and how they're named. We have headline, display URL, and description. And there are other components in the much more to know and learn slide at the end that I'll make remarks on for those that are wondering why I would show the simplest form of the ad. But the blue part is of course clickable and will take you to the target website or whatever the case may be to download an app. And that's where you can specify the exact URL where you're taking the user to. The display URL is another way to present the URL. So the URL for the headline part, where the user actually ends up, could have quite long parameters in it. It could have tracking parameters, so on and so forth. So you wouldn't want that to be the display URL, so it's an opportunity to have a shortened one that's not clickable, but is more appealing to look at. But I caution you that if you do set up, if your display URL and your target URL are not the same, make sure you have a redirect set up. So in this case, uniquevenues.com/CUA, short for Catholic University of America, should direct to the URL in case someone were to type that in later on. And then a description, another poll popped up, sorry about that, on my end at least. Poll popping up, okay. So the description is a chance to put 2 sentences. Google was beta testing 3 description parts, but they've gone back to 2 description parts. So it's a chance to state your call to action or why you're showing this ad and so on and so forth. Each of these elements do have character restrictions. You'll notice in the headline part there is a pipe character that separates the headline part, so it's not necessarily going to read as one continuous sentence or one continuous phrase. So each section does have character restrictions, including spaces. And those are counts, of course, not word counts, but character counts. So you've built an ad and you're now considering costs. When you're working with Google, they'll step things out for you and how you might build your ad and take you in a series of directions. You don't need to follow that setup wizard, if you will, to a T. You can always go back and make changes. So before you ever launch the ad, you could put in values and go back and change them. So I talk about cost second because we want the research to occur first. We want our ad intent to be developed first, and then we can consider cost. And there's different ways you can pay for advertising, and this is true of other platforms as well. You can pay per click, and you can set a maximum that you might pay per click, and you can do this globally across the entire ad that you present. Or you can do it by keyword phrase. So in other words, you might have a maximum that you set globally and then have lesser bids on different keyword phrases in your keyword set. You can pay per conversion. And we'll talk a little bit about conversions here as we approach the end of the webinar. And an example of a conversion would be someone gets to your site or to uniquevenues.com, submits the request for an RFP. And what's great about Google's platform is that when you choose to bid by maximizing conversions against the advertisement, it will find the best searchers out there for you, give you the best opportunity to convert. How it does that, I do not know. That's their secret recipe. But it is a little more expensive to bid per conversion. So consideration there. You can pay per impression on other ad platforms, how many times the ad appears. You can have a total advertising budget. In other words, what's interesting about this is some platforms will stop the advertisement when your total budget has been hit, others won't. But in the case of Google, you can have a daily advertising budget, $20 a day, whatever the case may be, and it will stop at that point. Here's a cautionary tale, and it's not in the slide. Interestingly enough, with Google Ads, you pre-fund your account using a credit card, and an amount of $500, whatever the case may be. And you have a daily ad budget that's hit each day. You've expended and exhausted all of your spend or the funds that are in the account. And you, let's say, not plug those funds in for 2 weeks. When you plug those funds in, Google, much to my chagrin, and I know others, and I think they're working on it, will go back and account for those 2 weeks you weren't advertising and start to spend those funds immediately over your daily budget, which is disappointing. That's how it works. So if you can, you keep your budgets funded as much as possible through funding the account. Okay, and then another type of bid or cost control element are automatic bid adjustments, which are very interesting. So you may be bidding on the term Chicago event venues at $1.75 a click or 50 cents a click. You can bid whatever you want, and that'll result in, of course, positioning in search results. But you may find that users on mobile devices are converting at a higher rate. So you may say, okay, if desktop users are converting at a lesser rate, I'll pay more to get mobile users to convert. So you can automatically adjust your base bid by a percentage if it's a mobile user. Anyhow, that's a really, really cool detail and feature, at least with Google Ads. All right, and we'll go through audiences and then I'll pause for questions. So across all platforms, including Google Ads, you can, in addition to keyword search phrases with Google Ads, you can also target specific pre-built audiences that Google already serves to you. You just simply have to search for them and select them. And Facebook, for sure, you can do that. I can recall MPI being an audience that had roughly, I want to say they've identified 22,000 people that are available as Facebook targets in terms of advertising. So, you can pick audiences and pause briefly for any questions.
Yes, Todd, actually we had one come in from an attendee that was wondering what your recommendation is around creating different locations on Google Maps for various venues within their campus property. So sounds like it might be a campus venue and they've got like 4 different places where you can hold weddings, maybe 2 different places where with auditoriums you can hold conferences. What's your feeling about having one pin on the map for your organization versus 5 or 6 different pins on the map for the different parts of the services or the offerings that you provide? Will that factor into this in any way, shape, or form?
I mean, it could, but I guess to serve the need for the pinpointing on the maps, I would definitely set up Google business accounts for each location, provided they're operating that independently. Have someone who can be accountable for that Google business listing, get it on the map that way, get your ratings and reviews to be boosted up that way as well in Google search results, etc. Separate phone numbers. If there's a separate web presence or even page on the same domain, it should be able to achieve that. So I would start there, including Bing too, Bing business presences as well.
Right. Is there a cost to have multiple Google business accounts, or is that just basically kind of establishing you're the box that you live in and says, okay, for this chapel, this is me, and I'm also this conference center over here, and you just get it created and signed up and managed that way?
You can create it, sign up, manage that way for free. Essentially, there may already be a listing out there that may pop up that's unclaimed for that chapel. It's possible. It may be tough to find it, but it could be there. But when you go to create that listing, per the address, it should find it if it already is there and unclaimed.
Okay.
Um,
And
we
then,
do talk about locations a little bit as it relates to ads too here coming up.
okay. Another question I think that just came out of the last section that I think is good is in evaluating how much monitoring and shifting to do, themselves, realistically, how much time per week does it take to be effective? So if you're monitoring campaign and making shifts, like how much time a week are you spending as an individual to do that?
This is all about time. It is. And I do, my closing slide is going to hit that point. There's time investment up front, there's time investment in the middle, and there's time investment at the end. There's no doubt about it, especially when you go to stage your next ad campaign, you're going to be getting details at the end that help you stage the next campaign. And there's the notion of reverse engineering advertising that I'll touch on briefly at the end as well. So how much time? It depends. It depends on what the campaign is like. Is it multifaceted? Does it have many ads? Does it have one ad and one goal? I'll ballpark it. If you run a text ad with different variations of that ad, probably if you're going to run a 90-day campaign, you wouldn't want to spend less than 10 hours.
Per week or 10 hours total?
In total.
Okay, so an hour or two a week for just a modest multifaceted campaign. And obviously, if they're more complex or you're running multiple campaigns, then that time is going to increase as you go.
Yeah, and there's a lot that through assume artificial intelligence, especially on Google's end, that's happening in the background for you. So that time, the usage of time is going to be relaxed over time. There's no doubt about it as we move forward, but there's a big but at the end that I'll talk about too. I'll go ahead and click to the next slide. I'm not sure of time, Joel, but
no, just keep rolling along.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so location in terms of advertising, this is not hard, so I'll just cut over it lightly. And this is true of other platforms again. Variance in how you can control these variables, but you can specify to run your advertisement 100 miles around the center of Chicago to any searchers in that area who are present in that area. However, you can also sub-option that and say, and anyone else who might be interested in a venue in Chicago, and capture them, whether they're in Tokyo or Madagascar. You can do that. But the bulk of the time, the ad will show up to searchers around that radius, inside of that radius. You can specify a country, show the ad across the entire country, depending on your target, your audience, your searches. State, province, county, zip postal code, congressional district. It can get very, very granular. So again, location has to do with where the ad's going to be served up to users and where they are. I'll go to the next slide. Scheduling. So we're almost ready to launch. Again, true of other platforms other than Google. You can pick a start and end date. You can actually determine when you would like your campaign and ads to run during the day. You could make those ads served up equivalent to your business hours that you're open, especially if you have tap to dial in your mobile ad. It's up to you. So either it could be true that the ad would run for the day and not hit the daily budget that you specified to spend, or you could, one of those two will be true. One of the two will stop it from serving up the rest of the day. You can pick certain days of the week to run the ad, or you can simply not specify any schedule and just run it all the time and pause it when you want. But caution to the wind, especially on Google, when you pause and you fund the account back, which I hope they fix. Okay, and we're just about ready to launch, and there are approval steps that platforms undertake. And, initially, you'll see a status of pending review. Someone somewhere is going to literally look at that advertisement and approve it, and then it'll run. Turnaround is quite quick. Needless to say, much faster than it used to be years ago. If you make edits to a campaign and its advertisements during and while it's running, it could invoke an approval step. And again, someone will review those changes, and 99 times out of 100 will approve it, and your ad will go. There's also automated checks that occur, Google in particular and Facebook. I'll do the Facebook example first. If you place an image in a Facebook ad, even if it's a post and you choose to promote that post, and that image has a lot of text in it, it might be a sign outside of the venue, or it could be text that you purposely typed in. It's likely not to serve that ad up all that much, because it does get resized on something like Instagram and becomes indiscernible as to what that advertisement's focus is, especially within the photo. But an example of automated checks on the Google side, if let's say you've run a campaign for 6 weeks and someone changes a URL and that URL no longer works for that advertisement, it results in a 404 not found, Google's robotic processes will trap that and stop the ad until you fix it. Because nothing could be worse than Google serving up an ad that takes someone to nowhere. Not only that, it costs you money. So be glad that they are on the lookout for things, and including trademark infringement. Sometimes you'll get false positives on that. I rarely have seen that over the years of managing the advertisements with Google in particular, but another example of an automated check that can be done that would not be someone trying to invoke an approval step. And then you have the right to appeal anything that comes up. I've gone through that process a couple times in terms of appeal. Almost done. So I'll go through the measure steps, and measuring the results of a campaign certainly can't be achieved in the contents of one slide, but these are some of the key things you can look out for. You can measure an ad's effectiveness in terms of the number of impressions, for what it's worth. The interaction rate is a better way to measure. Related to the number of impressions, and interaction rate can also be equal to click rate, if you will, or some action taken within the ad. Maybe it's a button click on a Facebook ad. You want to look at your cost per interaction. There's some examples parenthetically there. What's the cost per click? What's the cost to play a video? And make some judgments there. How many conversions do you have? And conversions from the Facebook side can be achieved by a utility they have, where you place some code on your website and it reads that code and and lets you know what conversions are based on interactions on your website. Google conversions are very good. You can tie Google ads to Google Analytics, set up goals, submit an RFP, watch a video, click a phone number, whatever the case may be. Well, that's my second example, and judge the number of conversions. So you might have 100 clicks and 10 conversions. 10% of your clicks convert. Maybe that's good for you. It depends on your ad goal to begin with. And then, when you run a Google advertisement, you can have a phone number that is tappable, and it can be counted as a conversion for mobile users. And you can choose to just show that phone number in the advertisement to mobile users if you'd like. And you can even go as far as setting the duration of minutes that someone has completed a call with you to call it a conversion. So if someone calls, listens to a voice attendant, hangs up in 30 seconds, you may not want to count that as a conversion. But if someone's on the phone with you for 5 minutes, you may want to see that show up as an ad conversion, a goal achieved in your statistics. So different ways to measure the results of digital campaigns. And then I'll pause for any maybe questions here, Joel.
Yeah, actually, we have some good questions coming in. One from a couple of people is wondering, what's the best time of day to run ads for event venues? So people that are looking to book business, is there a better time of day to run these ads for people that are looking for event venues?
No, I probably not. I haven't encountered that. I would suggest using Google Trends, and it's not answering the question to a T, but I look at Google Trends and look more at the event types you're trying to attract and see when people are searching on those event types that you're trying to hold. I wouldn't consider time of day. I don't consider time of day. You know, it would depend. If you do have international clientele, people that are going to come in and host events, it's irrelevant, of course. It's really going to be, it could be campaign driven. Time of day could be. You know, it depends, but I don't.
When we run ads typically for event venues, do we keep them kind of going throughout the day? Is that our typical process? Yeah.
It's nearly always 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Another question that I thought was good. Someone asked an opinion regarding would you do if you have a limited budget? What's better, Google or Facebook for your digital ad spend? What do you think? Do you have any recommendations or just some pros and cons to each?
Limited budget, I don't think it matters, but I would probably go Facebook. You know, again, it would depend on what the campaign objectives are. I would go Facebook because we do some promoted posts from our blog, our top pick lists that list the 10 best venues for camps and retreats. We promote that post and we can get, you know, upwards of 20 to 30 interactions and 1,000 impressions for $10. So, you know, I'd probably go Facebook if your budget is low and you don't have a need to run the campaign perpetually forever, or, you know, not for long windows. Facebook, sure, but you still can't use Google.
Looks like
can I ask a clarifying question for that too, Todd? Because this has always been my understanding. I want to make sure, because this might help some people answer that question. Doesn't it also well, you said it's kind of about the goals of the campaign.
Yeah.
And so by that, you mean if it's for a life event, a wedding, a reunion, or whatever, is it more valuable to run a life event based ad on Facebook? But if it's for a professional corporate meeting or conference or something like that, and that's the objective of the goal, it's probably better to be on a Google platform. Would you say it that way?
Yeah, that's certainly fair. Certainly. An example I can think of right now for a customer, I mean, they're public after all, for Boston University, we're running 2 different ad types on Facebook, one for summer events and one special events and one for summer conferences. Both ads do perform well, but the audiences were carefully selected to make sure that the maximum impact was there. The budget is good. So it's drawn out over a period of months, much cheaper than running on Google. Yeah. So, but yes, you know, firmly yes to your point there.
Yeah. And again, I think we had another question pop in really quick about preferred day of the week, but I think the general answer is what we know about a lot of our planners is that for, you know, so many of them are full-time planners. That's what they do. That's their full job. But many of them are also, that's their second job. You know, it's a side job and it's a part-time thing. And so people really are looking for event venues of all types, all hours, day and night. Because someone might be doing it during the day because that's their day job, and other people might be doing it evening and weekends because that's their side job. And so again, I think that's why we take the approach of being in the space 24/7, because you just never know when someone's like, now is the time that I have 90 minutes to sit down and do my research on a venue. And that could be 12 noon in the afternoon, or it could be 2 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday, depending on when they've carved out the time in their life to do that. So
yeah, we are converting on ads against profiles on uniquevenues.com at 2 a.m. Eastern. There's no doubt about it.
So just helpful for the audience to know that it really is kind of a true global 24/7 marketplace. We have a couple more, but I want to make sure we get through your slides. So go ahead and keep rolling and we'll come back to these.
Okay, ad effectiveness, a couple tidbits. You know, conversion statistics is certainly a key indicator. You can run multiple advertisements out to achieve the same goal in the campaign. Not even to be thought of as A/B testing to see which one works, but you can set up those ads, adjust some phrases in the ads, and you know, not necessarily different URLs, but Google eventually can pick, you know, in particular, Google will pick the best ad for you and run that more. So you can, in a sense, it's experimentation, but really it's you're getting to a goal of finding the best ad for that particular campaign. The other ads will continue to serve for whatever reason Google might serve them, but you know, you can see effectiveness by building more than just one ad for a campaign is the key there, and you want to do that. Okay, I'll jump ahead, but another poll popped up. Okay, so they're beyond the scope of the webinar, unfortunately, today. There are other topics surrounding digital advertising. The notion of negative keywords, especially if you use broad match and even phrase match search matching, you're going to get clicks on your ad that may not be relevant. You'll see those. Google in particular presents those to you. You want to manage those. Maybe you don't want to get clicks for those terms that came in. You'll mark them as negative. You can do remarketing with digital advertising. Ties to your website, the advertising platform, visit history, and so on and so forth. You can add extensions to, in particular, Google Ads. Like we mentioned, the mobile phone number, something called rich text snippets that might be little short words or phrases that tell more about your product. Other site links other than just the target URL for your campaign. Other areas to get to your site, about us, the chapel on the campus. You can add additional links. Responsive ads, ads that can be shown on mobile devices. I don't see them too frequently. That can include different phrasing in your advertisement, and it loads that phrasing in sort of a tall tier on the phone with an ad headline. So not necessarily a description in one and description two, like we saw on the regular text ad. You can manage ads in groups. Think of that as I have an ad group for weddings, an ad group for conferences, an ad group for retreats. So a way to organize your advertisements within a campaign. Or you could set them up as multiple campaigns. It's how you choose to take advantage of the software at your disposal. And we've already talked about the notion of multiple ads and campaigns. And then sure, we'll have a couple more questions. And this poll keeps popping up. So this goes to, I think, a question we had earlier. Yes, a lot of things happen after you get the campaign running. Google, Facebook, they're all doing some smart things. There might even be, you might be getting some assistance from Google. They call you up and help you. These things are being done, but you do want to invest the time. Don't set it and forget it. Stay with it, see what's going on. You're going to learn some things over time. You're going to be able to make adjustments. There's a management need. Just definitely keep that in mind. And as an aside, members and non-members alike, we do offer a la carte advertising to any marketing package level. And then for certain marketing packages, you can select to run a digital ad as one of your marketing service options here at Unique Venues. And I'll certainly can take some more questions. And of course, we have a resources page available that will include all of our webinar archives, links to other interesting topics. So thank you for your time today very much.
And thank you, Todd. We do have a couple more. Christina's been waiting very patiently for her answer. It circles back to that original conversation about Google Maps and dropping pins. Her question is, can you make two listings for the same location? So let's say it's a museum, but that also has a room that you do weddings in. Can you have a pin for the museum and a pin for the weddings on that same location? Or do you know if that creates a conflict?
It probably would create a conflict. I'm not sure though. It probably would. It's the same address. It definitely will.
Yeah, right. So, but if it has a separate address, maybe a secondary address, then you could probably make it happen. I know when I was at the University of Arizona, some buildings were so large they had 2 or 3 addresses, and you could get away with 2 or 3 pins in the map. So I'd say, Christina, give it a go and see what happens out there. Carla asked if there's a resource that shows like the average user demographics of the different ad platforms. So to talk a little bit about when you get into one of the platforms, how can you get information about who you're going to be promoting to, or how do you target the specific demographic that you want to?
If the advertisement links back to your site, you have to accept some some terms that they present to you. You have to, usually you can make those statements in your privacy statement. So you essentially agree that you've done all that. And then, you can certainly look at demographics, see the ad interaction, even in Google Analytics. There's a way to tie Google advertisement analysis and Google Analytics and see how, things are converting with regard to those demographics. But it goes back to audiences more in terms of planning to, run that campaign against certain audiences.
Okay.
Maybe answer that.
Okay. And actually, Larissa just let us know that it does work fine with the same address, because if you think of a big office building and you have multiple businesses in there, so again, I would say go for it, and
Cool.
you can probably make that happen. So another question that came in is, can you give an example of what a responsive ad is? What does a responsive ad mean, or how does that look when someone's engaged with it?
Yeah, so in the traditional text ad that we saw, where there's headline 1, headline 2 separated by a pipe in the different description sentences, it's more phrased based. So you might load 30 phrases into the responsive ad, great place to meet, just off the top of my head, capacity up to 500 attendees. And these phrases will show at random, so to speak, to users when the ad loads, with a headline clear on what the campaign is about. But just another way to present the ad without having to read something through like it's a paragraph.
Okay, great. Well, I don't see any other questions outstanding at the time. So again, Todd, I want to thank you very much for your time. As we've indicated, this can be a fairly intricate or complex. Oh, we had one more pop in really quick here. We'll answer this one and then we'll wrap up. Jacques has asked, is there a website to find out what the most common search terms are for your venue?
For your venue. Yeah, you could go to, now this may or may not work for you, Jacques, but you can try. Believe it or not, alexa.com.
And your Alexa's about to speak, right?
That's
Yeah, okay, good.
It happened, Joel. Can you believe it? If you go
there
to,
she is, yeah.
If you go to alexa.com and scroll to the bottom, you're able to plug a domain name. I can't remember if you can plug a specific page off of that domain name. And for free, it will show you how people are getting to your page or site, as of course will analytics software. You can look at search keywords to see how users are getting to your site. But that's one free way to do it.
But alexa.com is a way, or if you have Google Analytics on your website, then you could log into that, or whoever has that account could log into it and also give you an idea how people are getting there, correct?
Sure.
Yep.
And I would have to assume, Todd, that they have to be very specific with, so if Jock says Catholic University of America, what Alexa is going to show are the referring pages for
Terms.
most likely their core business.
Yeah, right. The most popular terms for those pages, yes.
Yeah, so it's going to have to be whatever the specific, Catholic University conferences and conference and event services office or something like that. So, right?
Yeah, and that site will show how you're ranking in the world and things like that.
And the Museum of Science and Industry would be Museum of Science and Industry private events.
Okay. Well, I think we've kind of hit all the questions that were out there. Again, I want to thank everyone for being a part of our final Taking Your Business to the Next Level webinar. We really appreciated putting this series together for you. We're working right now on the content for June. We're going to take a slight pause at the end of May, give everybody a week or so to kind of take a break and focus on some other things for a little bit. Give me a little break as well, because running 3 a week definitely is keeping me busy, and I'm having a great time doing it. And then we're going to start out with a new series again in June, and we've got some interesting things coming on virtual meetings. We've got another expert panel that's getting lined up. And other topics again around the marketing and sales area based on the feedback that we've gotten from everybody before. And so with that, I'm going to bid everyone a great rest of the afternoon. As a reminder, this was recorded. It'll be live, well, all but the first minute and a half when I had to pop out and pop back in again. But we'll get it out on the website within 24 hours, and I will send everyone a copy of Todd's slides. and the poll results as we do with all of our webinars. So thank you for being here. Have a good day and a good long weekend for those of you that are in the States. And we'll see you on a future Unique Venues webinar. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.